We are reading the books we already own, and we're doing it together, like the Fellowship of the Ring or a throuple. If you're new here, I am going through my bookshelf one book at a time, reading the ones I haven't read yet and deciding what gets to stay and what's gotta go. And I just finished reading Blaze Wrath Games, so let's discuss. In this book, we follow Lana, and Lana really wants to be part of Team Puerto Rico for the upcoming Blaze Wrath World Cup. Blaze Wrath is a game that could best be described as soccer with dragons. One of the members of every team is called a runner, and they are the only member of the team that does not ride a dragon. Team Puerto Rico's runner is kicked off the team, so at long last, Lana has a shot. But things are not as they seem, ever, in this book. Because it turns out that Lana's favorite star player is actually working with a dragon that was cursed into being a human. And together, those two are burning down dragon sanctuaries and refuse to stop unless the cup is canceled. This book is a really interesting swirl of ideas. For one, it takes place in modern day, and all of dragon soccer is essentially hidden from normies like you and me. And because of that, it does have a lot of modern day references, and I think some people will love that and some people not so much. This book also does a really good job of talking about Lana's relationship with her Puerto Rican culture. Because she did not grow up in Puerto Rico, she is considered by many, even on her team, to not be Puerto Rican enough. And I think that's something that's going to be really relatable to a lot of people. And speaking of representation, there is so much of it in this book. For example, one of the teams is made up entirely of young LGBTQIA+ people. There's just like constant diversity in this book, and I really loved it for that. This book is also just jam-packed with twists and turns. Like every time you think you have it figured out, there's a huge twist that turns everything up on its head. At times, it does feel like this book is just doing way too much, and I wish that it had kind of simplified and focused a little more. While I think Blaze Wrath Games was a lot of fun and a lot of people are going to really enjoy this one, I'm just not the biggest fan of competition books. And while this is absolutely one of the better ones that I've read, it still has enough of that trope that I found myself not loving it as much as someone else might. I'm also starting to wonder a little bit if I actually like books about dragons. Because over the last few years, I've read a lot of them, and I can think of several that I thought were pretty good, but none that like blew my mind. I feel like the book world has conditioned me to think that I have to like dragon stories, but honestly, I would take dinosaurs over dragons any day. Ultimately, I think that Blaze Wrath Games is a pretty good book. It's a lot of fun, it has great pacing, lots of diversity. And by the way, I should mention this is the first in a duology, so if you do end up loving it, you'll want to pick up the second one to read that as well. But the modern day setting and the competition-based plot just made it a book that wasn't my cup of tea. So for that reason, while I did give Blaze Wrath Games a 4 out of 5, it is going to be an unhaul for me. And with that, let's see what's up next on my shelf. Next up, we've got all of Heartstopper. I've read all of these, I love them, I'm not unhauling them, so let's move on. Next up on my shelf is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. I have read this, and I liked it a lot. In fact, in my review, I said that my biggest complaint about it was that it wasn't long enough, and in my opinion, that's one of the best complaints you can have about a book. Also, this cover is hot, so I'm gonna keep it. Which brings us to the next book on my shelf that I have not read, When Haru Was Here. Now, this actually is a newer book. It came out fairly recently, and this cover is absolutely stunning, so I'm excited to read it. What have you been reading off of your bookshelf so far this month? Let me know in the comments.